Area 517, do you want to report a UFO? Over.
Negative. We don't want to report.
Look, it wasn't my worst Wednesday night.
Hello and welcome to Anomaly Now. I'm your host, Miles Lewis. This is the weekly news and media roundup show for the 501c3 nonprofit Scientific Anomaly Institute, aka the Anomaly Archives, based here in Austin, Texas. We are founded in 2003 with the goal and mission of preserving all things anomalous, popular literature, scientific, rigorous textual analyses, case reports, correspondence between researchers, scientists, as well as experiencers and witnesses, all things anomalous from, well, anomalous cognition, psi, ESP, parapsychology, the paranormal, UFOs, dreams, consciousness, lucid dreaming, remote viewing, astral projection. He rattles on and on and on. Cryptozoology, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, out-of-place animals, ancient civilizations. Yeah, you get the picture. Anyway, you can go to our website, anomalyarchives.org. You can find all kinds of information there about us, our upcoming outreach events, where we're going to be doing outreach tabling at events such as the Austin Archives Bazaar, as well as the Strange and Extraordinary, or is it Weird and Extraordinary? Strange and Extraordinary Fest. Right. Anyway, yeah, go to anomalyarchives.org. And we've got the show notes for this show and every other edition of Anomaly Now, streaming to you since 2020, skipping 2022. Let's jump right in. Of course, this is not going to be a live instance of this show. It hasn't been in a long time, but thank you for tuning in live. If you are there watching on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch or wherever we're streaming at the moment, thank you, thank you, thank you. Hit the like, subscribe, notification bell, all that good stuff. I will be tonight at the ninth Alien Beers and Cheers, hosted by my good friend David. And that's over, you can find out information about that at meetup.com/Austin-disclosure-meetup-group, aka Area 512. And we're going to be talking about our recent attendance, thank you, David, at the It's Probably Nothing tour inaugural event that was put on by Chris Ramsey and Jesse Michaels there at the Paramount on Congress Avenue here in Austin, Texas. So that's going to be happening very soon, or rather it's going to be happening tonight as this show is airing, because it's broadcast over the interwebs. I know it's not broadcast. We say we're recording this on tape. Play the tape, play the recording. Everything's ones and zeros, as you know. So yeah, you can go, and there's of course the Flipboard and all that. I'm just going to start jumping right in. So more free good stuff. The February 2026 edition of Society for Scientific Exploration's Explorer newsletter is online. That's at scientificexploration.org/explore-feb-226 or 2026, or just follow the link in the show notes for tonight's show. Great free material there. As always, every month there's new material, and I believe they are looking for a new editor. So if you think you want to edit the Explorer journal for the SSE, Society for Scientific Exploration, go check it out. Look for the links there. Coming up this Saturday at 1 p.m., Saturday, February 28th, we are having our monthly Anomaly Academy lecture series, and this month's presentation is by Jack Hunter, an anthropologist who has been exploring all things anomalous, paranormal, and strange and mysterious, and is presenting Of Minds and Monsters, an exploration of non-human consciousness and the paranormal. And you can find out more about that at our Patreon, patreon.com/Anomaly Archives, or at Anomaly Archives events, and look for the Anomaly Academy monthly lecture series, or just search our website for Jack Hunter. And he has published a number of books, as well as contributed to a number of books, as well as edited a number of books. There's a small sampling there in that screenshot. The Folklore of the Xanat Valley, Sacred Geography, Ecology and Spirituality, Deep Weird, the varieties of high strangeness experience, Greening the Paranormal, Manifesting Spirits, and so many more. Check it all out at his websites, jack-hunter.webstarts.com or jack-hunter.webstarts.com, among others. Follow the links over at our website. Moving right along, there's a bunch of other interesting upcoming events, including this one over at humaninstitute.org, investigating non-human intelligence, groundbreaking talks by leading experts on unidentified anomalous phenomena. This one is coming up in 2 days. That's February 27th at 4 p.m. Eastern, a live panel titled Scientific and Research Foundations. Gary Nolan, Beatriz Villarroel, and Massimo Teodrani will jointly discuss the work that faces researchers as they investigate non-human intelligence in HI in a panel moderated by Reed Summers. I think this is free. I registered for it. I think it's free. Again, you can find out more at humaninstitute.org. And then over at societyforuapstudies.org, that's SUAP, so Society for UAP Studies, is their new series, UAP Studies Seminar Series, Foundations of a New Field, Advancing a Rigorous Academic Framework for UAP Research. We mentioned this before. They just launched this a few days ago on February 19th with a presentation by Steve Fuller titled Why UAPs Are Intrinsically Good to Think About and With, Regardless of Their Ultimate Reality. And coming up March 5th is a live stream link. Ooh, it's going to be live on YouTube. Okay. Toward a coordinated, cooperative, global instrumented study of UAP by Rich Hoffman of the SCU, the Scientific Coalition for UAP Research. And then after that is going to be a presentation by Massimo Teodrani and then Kimberly Ingalls. Highly recommend all of these. And I did not realize, coming up on YouTube, live in 8 days, March 5th at 1 p.m. Good. Hit that notification bell. Whoop. All right. Meanwhile, okay, so shifting to my rant about AI, artificial intelligence. Our good friends over at Anomalous.com, great source for daily news. They take the weekend off, but you can always find the latest news information over at Anomalous.com. A few days back, I noticed a blurb from one of their writers, William Murphy, who linked to something that I absolutely consider AI slop, but it intrigued me, and I thought before realizing truly that it was AI slop, that it intrigued me. As you can see the title there. Oh, yes. No, I am not seeing it. It's playing. Where is it? Gosh darn it. I've lost my place. Too many tabs, folks. Yes, here we go. That's the one right there. Google's quantum AI just solved the Fermi paradox. The answer is terrifying. This is at a channel called Luminox. I am not recommending this channel. I hate this kind of channel, and it really bothered me that the Anomalous news writers linked to it. That said, I do want to thank William Murphy for linking to it because I did actually find it intriguing, though incredibly frustrating. As he said on the Anomalous.com webpage, quote, Googling the Google scientist Hartmut Neven, that's Hartmutneven, Hartmut Neven, to establish his reality. Yeah, that's because it's clear that this is AI slop. And what that means is, yes, somebody dumped a series of articles into their LLM, large language model, AI vocalization generator. And these are the worst things about these things, is the AI generator. And in fact, that reminds me of something else I wanted to talk about. And I can't get to all this stuff, but folks, Spamela is bothering me. All right. So yes, this video, Google's quantum AI just solved the Fermi paradox. The Fermi paradox, of course, is the famous attempt to calculate the number of habitable worlds and the number of potentially advanced civilizations like our own that could be reaching out to us. And the paradox is, with all this space, all these stars, all these planets, all these probable life-bearing worlds, where the heck are all the other NHI, ETs, the other beings? There's this paradox, but our current mainstream science does not accept that, because they do not look at UFO reports as valid or other ancient evidence of possible contact with some non-human intelligence in mythic art and storytelling. They do not accept that as valid or real, thus this paradox. Now, what this video goes into is it mentions a number of different things, a number of different researchers. First and foremost, most importantly, is it's not Google did not solve the AI, the Fermi paradox. Again, this is AI slop, so the title is a mishmash where likely generated by AI and not understood by the quote unquote intelligence. In it, it mentions a 2024 article published by astrophysicist Michael Garrett in a peer-reviewed paper in Astronautica, which is over here. You can read it at sciencedirect.com. Acta Astronautica, volume 219 for June 2024. Is artificial intelligence the great filter that makes advanced technical civilizations rare in the universe? By Michael A. Garrett. Now, obviously, every day we are seeing news about AI, artificial intelligence, and how it's affecting our environment, our jobs, our civilization at large. And this and several other articles that I've come across in the last few days have given me great pause, very deep reflection. And yes, as the video jokingly mentioned, terrified me. And this article, or this essay from June 2024 by Michael A. Garrett, who is a member of SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and he has some very traditional presentations online where he's just talking about, just the very basics of the SETI process. But this paper by him nearly 2 years ago is rather alarming in the context of where we are now, just 2 years later, in the development of general artificial intelligence and the increasing use among our population and corporations and governments and militaries of AI. Some of the highlights mentioned here: artificial intelligence is emerging as one of the most transformative technological developments in human history. Biological civilizations may universally underestimate the speed that AI systems progress, as these are so different from traditional timescales. AI could spell the end of intelligence on Earth, including AI, before mitigating strategies, for example, a multiplanetary capability, have been achieved. These arguments suggest that the longevity, L, of technical civilizations is less than 200 years, thus explaining the great silence observed by SETI. Small values for L underscores the necessity to intensify efforts to regulate AI. Failure to do so could rob the universe of all conscious presence. Now, this is obviously a very alarmist take on AI, but his use of it in the context of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence and this idea of a great filter, one of which has been, I think, previously thought of to be like, oh, as a civilization becomes technological and moves ever faster in a development of its technology, they inevitably will split the atom and go into an atomic age, and that could be the great filter, that many civilizations don't survive the creation of atomic nuclear physics, that we destroy ourselves, they destroy themselves before they can ever become multiplanetary, interstellar, space traveling. And Mr. Garrett here is proposing that it's not nuclear development, but AI. Now, granted, this could just be the simplistic replacing of one fear of humanity with another. Obviously, we've made plenty of films, or human society has made plenty of films with AI as the enemy. Full disclosure, I just this weekend saw Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, the new film in theaters about an AI apocalypse. So again, all these things have converged in my mindscape over the last week or so since thinking about all these things, and just one thing after another coming up about AI. But this particular researcher's suggestion, again, nearly 2 years ago, that maybe the reason we don't hear any evidence of signatures of other civilizations is because they too have gone through an AI phase and didn't survive. Now, again, this is all speculative, but it's an interesting mental experiment, as you say, and I highly recommend reading this article. I do find it very disturbing, and he's basically proposing immediate AI regulation, something that I personally support. I won't state how strongly I feel about this, but at the end of the article, in the conclusion section, he writes, "The rapid development of AI presents a formidable challenge to the survival and longevity of advanced technical civilizations, not only on Earth, but potentially throughout the cosmos. The pace at which AI is advancing is without historical parallel, and there is a real possibility that AI could achieve a level of superintelligence within a few decades. The development of ASI is likely to happen well before humankind manages to establish a resilient and enduring multiplanetary presence in our solar system. This disparity in the rate of progress between these two technological frontiers is a pattern that we can expect to be repeated across all emerging technical civilizations. This raises questions about the inevitability of civilizations unwittingly triggering calamitous events that lead to the demise of both a biological and post-biological technical civilization. The potential of ASI to serve as a great filter compels us to consider its role in the broader context of our civilization's future and its implications for life throughout the galaxy. If ASI limits the communicative lifespan of advanced civilizations to a few hundred years, then only a handful of communicating civilizations are likely to be concurrently present in the Milky Way. This is not inconsistent with the null results obtained from current SETI surveys and other efforts to detect technosignatures across the electromagnetic spectrum. If SETI also serves as a lens through which we can examine our own technological trajectory and societal challenges, the urgency of establishing comprehensive global AI regulations cannot be overstated. It behooves us to engage with these issues proactively, to develop and enforce prudent regulatory measures, and to strive for a balance between harnessing the benefits of AI and safeguarding against the existential risks it may pose. Yada, yada, yada. You can read all this over at sciencedirect.com. Is artificial intelligence the great filter that makes advanced technical civilizations rare in the universe? By Michael A. Garrett. And again, this is all triggered. I feel like I remember hearing about this, again, nearly 2 years ago, June 2024. But when searching my records, I couldn't find any record indicating I'd come across it, but it rang a bell. Now, again, the video that started me down looking into this is mistitled, Google's quantum AI just solved the Fermi paradox. Answer is terrifying. Well, it goes into some other ideas. It also talks about how in October of last year, Google's AI called Willow did something that apparently is completely off the charts, crazy, weird, and yet there's been very little reporting on it, according to the video, again, which is AI slop. But when I looked for this, I found articles about it, certainly. But yeah, one article from Vice Magazine, Did Google Just Prove That the Multiverse is Real? By Luis Prada, December 2024. The founder and leader of Google Quantum AI, Hartmut Neven, says that the company's newly unveiled Willow chip represents a breakthrough in quantum computing, as he claims it can perform tasks in minutes that would take current supercomputers septillions of years, a feat he says can only be explained by the existence of parallel universes. This is mind-blowing. And again, I remember coming across this, but it's like a blip. It's like, it doesn't seem like it's really sunk in. And I think it's because it's just so ontologically shocking. This article goes on, in a blog post on Google's website, Neven wrote, quote, "The performance of the Willow chip was so phenomenally fast that it had to have, quote unquote, borrowed the computation from parallel universes," unquote. Neven is basing this bold claim on a computational task performed by Willow that he says would have taken today's best supercomputer 10 septillion years to accomplish. Meanwhile, Willow did it in under 5 minutes. Quote, "The mind-boggling number exceeds the known timescales in physics and vastly exceeds the age of the universe," Neven wrote. The idea that quantum computing would tap into a parallel universe has been around for a while. Neven is suggesting that Willow is lending that theory credence. Yeah, and again, there are other articles about this that you can read, including one by Hartmut Neven and Vadim Smelyansky over at the Google blog. Our quantum echoes algorithm is a big step toward real-world applications for quantum computing. Our Willow quantum chip demonstrates the first ever algorithm to achieve verifiable quantum advantage on hardware. A lot of this is really above my pay grade, but it does make a certain level of sense. Let's see if I can find some of the other things I just wanted to comment on. Yes. And then over at the BBC, the secrets, Google Willow, the secrets of the world's most powerful quantum computer inside the sub-zero layer of the world's most powerful computer. This is from January of this year, 2026. And yeah, obviously this is a bizarre claim that somehow they've invented a chip that's very, very small that can, because it's operating on the quantum level, is somehow tapping into the multiverse and being able to use all those multiverses as its kind of RAM to do in minutes what our other supercomputers couldn't do in billions, trillions, septillions of years. This is insane. Now, this is again all part of this video that's really crappy AI slop that I mentioned. The video is worthless. The transcript is about the only useful thing, but even there, of course, all the names of the alleged scientists are going to be phonetically spelled, misspelled. So you have to really do your digging, like William Murphy at Anomalous.com was commenting. Is it worth your time? I don't know. I think it's worth your time to consider this article. Again, just this essay by Michael A. Garrett of SETI, Is Artificial Intelligence the Great Filter? Also to consider this idea of, are these supercomputers tapping into the multiverse? Does that mean that there really is a multiverse? I guess I should just move away from this for now and just go to some other bit of news that's related to quantum computing, and that is the quantum computing happening inside our brains that may in fact be the source of consciousness. Over at unexplained-mysteries.com, back on February 20th, is this blurb, Quantum Operations in the Brain May Give Rise to Consciousness, Study Finds by T.K. Randall. Now, this is not a new idea, and I heard people talking about this recently as if it's a new idea. It's actually been around quite some time. But it's interesting. This is saying that there's some new research that validates this. New research into the mechanics of consciousness have revealed fascinating new insights into how it might arise. The study, which was carried out at Wellesley College in Massachusetts, determined that microscopic hollow tube structures known as microtubules found deep in the brain may be responsible for giving rise to consciousness in rats and potentially also in humans. What's more, these structures may actually perform calculations in the quantum realm. So there is this kind of like the Willow chip. The research adds further credence to the idea that quantum physics may be the underlying mechanism for consciousness, an idea that has been gaining traction in recent years. It was first proposed back in 1990 by Nobel Prize-winning physicist Roger Penrose, who hypothesized that, quote, each time a quantum wave function collapses in the brain, it gives rise to a moment of conscious experience. And this, I don't expect me to explain this, but this is like the collapse of the wave function that's often referenced when people are talking about consciousness and the effects of consciousness on the observed universe. This relates to Schrodinger's cat, this idea of there is a cat inside of a box, and this is a terrible experiment idea, that you're not sure whether it's dead or alive because there's something, there's a poison in the box that's only activated by the act of observation, and it either will 50% chance trigger it or not trigger it. So you don't know, and I'm probably misstating this. Anyway, it gives rise to this idea of the collapse of the wave, that somehow light, as we know, is both a wave and a particle, or it has both aspects, but you can only measure it one way or the other. And by doing so, by measuring, you are observing and you're collapsing its hyperspatial dual same at the same time, both at the same time, quantum state into an actualized state. Again, I'm probably grossly oversimplifying this. The article over at unexplained-mysteries.com goes on, due to the nature of quantum physics, if this was the answer to how consciousness arises, then it could also mean that an individual's consciousness is entangled with other consciousness across the universe, making it a part of a web of consciousness spanning the entirety of existence. In other words, we could all be connected on a quantum level, even to civilizations on other worlds. Now, another aspect of that article, that's AI slot video, is this other research by Latham Boyle, and that is called On Interstellar Quantum Communications and the Fermi Paradox by Latham Boyle of the Higgs Center for Theoretical Physics, University of Edinburgh, UK, and the Parameter Institute for Theoretical Physics, Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. Now, again, this essay is from August of 2024, so a year and a half ago, approximately. And it basically kind of gets into this idea. It possibly reinforces the AI slot video's idea that quantum computing has solved the Fermi paradox, or rather, and again, I am not the person to be trying to explain this, but it has to do with what are called qubits as a way of communicating across the cosmos instead of radio astronomy, radio communication, which is, of course, the basis, slow electromagnetic technology that SETI has used and found nothing. And if I'm understanding correctly, as this one paragraph says here, thus Thus, our galaxy and universe do permit interstellar quantum communication, but the above constraints impose a stringent technological threshold we have not yet reached. In particular, we have not yet built a sufficiently large diffraction-limited telescope. We will see why this suggests a new resolution of the Fermi paradox. Quantum capacity of an interstellar communication channel. Again, I'm not going to try to explain this, but again, it goes to this idea that maybe, like the AI great filter concept by Michael Garrett, that we don't hear any evidence through our old way of trying to find technosignatures, radio waves, because there is this other great filter that is quantum computing, and that if that would be a much more efficient way to communicate across great distances. And again, getting back to this collapse of the wave idea, this spooky action at a distance, it was talked about by Einstein and other physicists, of once two particles are entangled, they can be on the opposite sides of the universe, distances that there's no way that we know of that they could communicate. And yet, if you could measure the state of one, you would be measuring the state of the other on the other side of the universe, thus implying some mode of communication across those great distances, kind of like we see perhaps in telepathy, which doesn't seem to be affected by distance, if you believe in that sort of thing. All right, well, I don't know how much more I can try to explain any of this stuff, which is to say I'm really struggling, but it has caused me a lot of deep thought. So thank you, William Murphy at Anomalous.com, for directing me to this frustrating piece of AI slop that really takes so much effort to try to get to the meat of what it's talking about. And there's so many hallucinations in it, as it makes it challenging to weed wheat from chaff, as they say. And staying on the AI hallucination angle, we have this over at studyfinds.com. We're not just receiving AI's hallucinations, we're hallucinating with it. We've talked previously on this show about AI psychosis, this phenomenon of people interacting with these AI agent chatbots. And that's the thing I'm mostly against. I'm against this is a personal expression of my own views on things, but I have great issues with the increasing building of data centers without humanity addressing the ecological, environmental, energy, and health effects on humans and other things in the environment and employment. But obviously there are good and important uses of AI, and it can help us go to new levels within science, in our exploration of trying to understand the nature of the universe and reality. All that said, it seems like the chatbots are the main problem, because people are hallucinating with the AI, which hallucinates. So obviously AI can just generate random false information. Yes, it's often drawing on vast stores of quote unquote real verified facts, as these large language models do, but they also draw upon crap, delusion, misinformation, disinformation, psychological warfare propaganda, racial institutional biases, and so much more and worse. But as this article points out about this study, it goes well beyond the AI hallucinating and then infecting the human with the false information hallucinated by the AI. People have delusions too, and they find great validation with these seemingly personable entities being so sycophantic and supportive of those delusions. And while I don't know about the quality of this particular study, I think that there's a very good argument here that this is something that we should be aware of, that the AI agent isn't going to know what's true. And if you start spouting delusional material at it, it will usually support you, because the developers of these AI chatbots don't want to put in too strong of guardrails or to make it less sycophantic, because that is part of the draw. That is part of the addictive quality of these. Can technology companies fix this problem? This article states, the analysis acknowledges that AI companies are aware these systems produce false outputs and may attempt to limit harmful interactions through better guardrailing, fact-checking, and reduced sycophancy. In August 2025, OpenAI released ChatGPT-5, explicitly designed to be less sycophantic and more willing to disagree with users. However, The company received significant backlash and quickly announced it would make the system, quote, warmer and friendlier, unquote, potentially undoing the safety measure. Moreover, there's a deeper problem that technology alone may not solve because AI systems aren't embedded in users' everyday worlds. They're entirely reliant on what people tell them. Claude doesn't know who your mother is. ChatGPT can't assess whether your claim about a stolen inheritance is plausible. Gemini has no independent sense of what you're like as a person outside what you've disclosed. This information often can't be checked, both because it relates to everyday life minutiae that aren't electronically recorded and because claims are frequently interpretative rather than purely factual. Anyway, I do recommend you go check out this article at studyfinds.com titled, We're not just receiving AI's hallucinations, we're hallucinating with it. Now, I already mentioned the microtubules article, which the recent one I was made aware of thanks to this article over at Coast to Coast AM, Quantum Brain Breakthrough Shakes Consciousness Debate, which maybe that's not the one I was thinking of. Links over to this popular mechanics. Your consciousness can connect with the whole universe. Groundbreaking research suggests this breathtaking clue about the architecture of consciousness supports a Nobel Prize winner's theory about how quantum physics works in your brain. Unfortunately, it's behind a paywall. But yeah, again, I believe this is just about what we were talking about, microtubules, that sort of thing. And actually, that article I already mentioned was elsewhere. All right, shifting gears. Obviously, in the UFO world, there's been great big news bubbling up for some time. This rumor that the president has been working on a speech to possibly be read or put out in July. Some have said, I think, July 8th, though wouldn't July 4th be the appropriate day? So we'll get to that. But, people criticize Jeremy Corbell. I found him to be an interesting person in the UFO scene. And I'm not really familiar with, I've never really seen his writing. I've seen his documentaries. I've seen him talk on his podcast with George Knapp, Weaponized, etc. But I've never really read anything that he wrote. And so this was interesting. Over at PioneerTownGazette.com, under their Desert Living section, is his article, Spooks, Spies, and Cosmic Lies, which really reminds me of Saucers, Kooks, and Spooks, or Saucers, Spooks, and Kooks, Saucers, Kooks, and Spooks, the UFO book by our good friend Adam Gorightly, which has now been made into a documentary I highly recommend, created by a joint production of Chris Graybill and Adam Gorightly. And now they have a podcast coming out with the same title. Anyway, Spooks, Spies, and Cosmic Lies, the luminal promise of Pioneer Town. Pioneer Town being some strange, artsy, off-the-grid community out in the desert of California, lots of Joshua trees. This kind of gives a little bit of an origin story for Jeremy Corbell that mentions him having been an artist and then getting hooked on the UFO subject. Some of this, I guess, I don't know if I was aware of, but it's an interesting read. I found it enjoyable. You might as well, to give you a sense of where he's coming from in words, in very thought out, typed out words, as opposed to the ramblings of a podcast or the visual storytelling of a documentary. And, a lot of people, I guess, criticize him for being a bit perhaps self-congratulatory or a little self-obsessed. I suppose I can see what they mean, but he's a flavor that you either like or dislike. I'd say I'm very tolerant of a lot of different flavors, and I find him perfectly palatable as well. I think it's interesting that his mentor and partner is George Knapp. And again, lots of people have criticisms of George Knapp. I actually think George Knapp is a pretty good example of a journalist who, like any, becomes obsessed or focused on a particular topic or subject area, and that becomes their whole oeuvre, milieu, career, life path. And it is certainly true that some people are critical of him and accuse him of being uncritical in his promotion of people and things like Bob Lazar, who he introduced, I believe, to Jeremy Corbell, who then did a documentary on him. Anyway, all that said, you may want to check this out. I think there was something towards the end I thought I'd read, like let's see. Yeah, so one of his ending paragraphs is, I've been fortunate enough to be in touch with sources of high military status who who have held positions that gave them access to some of the most exotic black budget programs on the planet. I've been a trusted documentarian and confidant for them. I've been hauled into SCIF's secret compartmentalized information facilities in Washington, D.C., and reprimanded for what constitutional legal scholars and my federal lawyer feel is simply practicing my First Amendment right as a journalist. Spooks, spiders with industry ties, I pulled out their Felix the Cat's magical bag and tried every trick in their trade to test me. I'm not sure that sentence makes sense grammatically, but I'm still here and the truth remains and there's no going back, not for me. They are here, who they are and what they want. Those are the big questions. And for those, I have only theories, but consensus reality must begin to catch up to actual reality, or we will remain in Plato's cave without attempting to understand who we are. Oh, yep, that was not the ending, but anyway, yeah, check it out over at pioneertowngazette.com. So yeah, the big news, of course, this claim that the president is going to have this big speech, but then superseding all of that, of course, was this silly non-controversy triggered by what we played last week, Obama. Oh gosh, I've already been recording for 45 minutes. Yikes. Where Obama said aliens are real. I don't have any I haven't seen evidence of them being here on Earth. And maybe that maybe there's a super secret program that I wasn't read into as president. All of which to me is non-controversial and very much a realistic response. And then he walks it back as he sees those words getting a lot of attention. And he says, well, I'm just saying, in the vastness of the universe, statistically, it's likely that they are out there. But I, again, have never seen any evidence that they're here. And then our current president, clearly just is using this as an opportunity, as he always does, to make himself look good. And is now, at the same time that he's saying that Obama violated security oaths and revealed classified information, but maybe he'll save him by declassifying that information. And then, of course, he's now made this tweet about declassifying all the UFO information, which, of course, was already part of the agenda of the government transparency directive that he already gave, which is help release the Epstein files, the JFK assassination files, the MLK assassination files, the RFK assassination files, some to greater or lesser degrees, and all controversially because it's all been done so poorly. But the UFOs files and the 9/11 files and the COVID files were all supposed to be part of that. But, that's a lot of stuff to put out there, and it's not being done very well in my estimation, and that estimation of a lot of others. All that said, I don't think this is going to amount to much, but there you go. It's been getting a lot more attention and really feeds into this rumor meme suggestion that he's going to do some kind of big UFO speech coming up in July or sooner. And it supports people's ideas that it's a distraction from other issues. Make of that what you will. I'm not really going to talk about it more than that, but I did want to read, I think entirely, this article over at Psychology Today by Janice Vilhauer, PhD, called Trump Orders UFO Disclosure. What does it mean for us? Government UAP disclosure is a psychological event. On February 19th, 2026, President Donald Trump directed the Pentagon and other federal agencies to begin identifying and releasing government files related to UFOs, now formally referred to as unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAPs, including materials to, quote, alien and extraterrestrial life, materials connected to. The directive follows several years of increasing institutional attention to UAPs. Congress has held formal hearings with sworn testimony from military personnel and a former intelligence official, yada, yada, yada. You know all this. But disclosure is not just about evidence. When information challenges basic assumptions about reality, institutional knowledge, or mankind's place in the universe, it carries significant emotional weight. As such, disclosure is a psychological event with real human impact. Depending on what is released, psychological reactions will vary widely. Some people will feel anxiety and overwhelm. Some will feel distrust. Some may feel awe. Others may feel disbelief, an immediate sense that this cannot be serious. And many will feel apathy, either because they doubt anything meaningful will change or because they are already overwhelmed by everything else competing for attention. Absolutely. All of these responses are valid. How the government discloses matters. Information from the government doesn't get processed in a neutral way. It lands in whatever level of trust or distrust you already carry. Trust in institutions is not just a political stance. It functions as a psychological stabilizer. Also, there are lots of citations here to the references section at the end. Love that. How people will respond has a lot to do with how credible they will perceive the information to be. The way the government discloses will significantly shape the credibility of the information and therefore its psychological impact. Research shows that trust increases when officials communicate accurately and transparently with consistent messaging and ongoing briefings. Yeah, I haven't seen that so far with any of those big revelations I was referring to. On the other hand, when communication is perceived as contradictory or withholding, trust erodes quickly. We have seen that. One of the most significant aspects of government disclosure is that it will almost certainly increase uncertainty. Shifts in reality can be destabilizing. Research shows that uncertainty is one of the most uncomfortable states for the nervous system to tolerate. When people feel uncertain, they experience more signs of emotional distress, such as anxiety or depression, sleeplessness, difficulty concentrating, and lack of motivation. If any released material strongly challenges people's assumptions, it may trigger what many clinicians and researchers describe as ontological shock, a profound disorientation that occurs when someone's framework for reality is disrupted. Individuals reporting anomalous encounters describe shock and disbelief that can feel life-altering. Some experience persistent non-pathological obsessive thinking as they try to regain coherence, while others report intense fear and clear physiological stress responses. The destabilization reflects a disruption of meaning structures, not mental illness. Thank you. You don't need confirmation of extraterrestrial life for ontological shock. Simply the awareness that there could be a potential unknown threat that authorities are uncertain of how to handle can create a shift in one's perceived sense of safety in the world. This overlaps with the broader concept of ontological security, the felt sense that the world is stable, knowable, and continuous. When that security is challenged, anxiety arises, and people reach for explanations that restore order. Reach for explanations that restore order. The search for meaning making. When new information enters your reality, you either reject it, fit it into what you already believe, or adjust your framework to make sense of it. Psychologists describe these processes as assimilation and accommodation, ways we preserve coherence when reality shifts. This is why I like my different acronym for UFOs instead of unidentified flying objects. I call them unassimilated fantastic observation, because once you've assimilated it, you've identified in your sense of meaning, your mythology, what you believe it is. That then becomes not a UFO, not an unidentified, not an unassimilated flying object, fantastic observation, but, oh, it's a spacecraft. Oh, it's an interdimensional being. Oh, it's an angel. Oh, it's some other type of entity. Oh, it's, yada, yada, yada. The article continues. But government disclosure will not simply introduce facts that require a mental adjustment. It will likely, for many, cause them to want to make meaning out of what they are learning. When people feel uncertain, they're often drawn towards explanations that sound decisive because it helps to regulate their anxiety. The clearer and more confident the narrative, the more it calms the nervous system. But this can cause people to become more vulnerable to misinformation, especially if the information is coming from people with dogmatic viewpoints. Many people also turn towards spiritual or philosophical frameworks that already provide structure and meaning. Long-standing belief systems offer coherence, identity, and continuity when reality feels uncertain. Others may increase information consumption as a way to regain emotional control, looking for rational perspectives that allow them to adapt to new information, while some who reject the information will withdraw altogether in order to preserve their own worldview. What makes this moment different is that government disclosure gives legitimacy to a stigmatized topic, and that changes the landscape in which people can make meaning of the information they are being given. Here is the paradigm analogy. The shifting Overton window has important implications. For decades, interest in UAPs was culturally seen as fringe or suspect. People who reported sightings risked ridicule or professional harm. When the United States government acknowledges UAPs in formal government proceedings and orders the Pentagon to release UAP information from all relevant agencies, the boundaries shift. Political scientists call this movement in the Overton window, the range of ideas considered legitimate for public discussion, or the prevailing paradigm. The paradigm is just the established view the consensus view of reality at any given time. But it's just a lens. It's just a myth. It's just a best available evidence, an intermediate worldview at any given time, and should not be taken as the end all be all of reality. That's all my commentary there. The article continues. When a topic moves from one that is mocked to one treated legitimately in government institutions, stigma decreases, and that matters psychologically. When stigma drops, more people engage openly, more people reconsider prior assumptions, and more people allow the topic into conscious reflection instead of automatically dismissing it. It moves the needle on the subject from suspect to something we must take seriously, particularly in the world of mental health. Government UAP disclosure isn't an event that will be contained within the borders of the United States. In a digitally interconnected world, news and psychological reactions spread quickly. Human beings are resilient, and while the majority of people adapt to new information as it arises, there are more vulnerable populations that need to be considered. Individuals already struggling with anxiety, distrust, trauma, or social instability may experience heightened distress. Even a small percentage of people reacting strongly to a global event can place strain on mental health systems. Proactive thought and preparation is required, not likely being done by this administration. Waiting to see what happens will be too late. And then there are the references. Good job, Psychology Today author Janice Vilhauer, JenniceVilhauer, PhD, over at psychologytoday.com. Thank you for that. I highly recommend you read that and think on that and share it with people. Meanwhile, over at skeptic.com, strangely, is an article by Nick Pope, Ufology from Fringe to Mainstream to Fringe, ? This is a pretty good overview of the last 8 years or so and how we got to the point we're at. I'm not a huge fan of Nick Pope for reasons I cannot share. He seems like a nice guy. He probably is a nice guy, more or less, and I wish him no harm. You might want to check out this article over at Skeptic, which is a strange place for it. There's also a video I'm not going to show, but there's a new video by Richard Dolan. Again, somebody I respect a lot more, even though he's done things and supported things that I did not support, like the Roswell slides, bogus nonsense that Jaime Maussan and others promoted. But keeping it on Nick Pope, I didn't mention this last week. Nick Pope has been diagnosed with terminal cancer. He made this announcement publicly a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, or actually maybe longer. He's quoted as saying, "I'm afraid my diagnosis and my situation leaves no doubt whatsoever. I can't beat it. Unfortunately, it's stage 4 and has metastasized to my liver." This is very sad. I don't wish harm on anyone generally. And anyway, I just want to acknowledge that this has been reproduced on a number of websites. This is over at Whitley Strieber's unknowncountry.com website, but he's still alive for the moment. And he's not without his own controversies, but sad news. One of the young guns that I've been aware of the last 8 to 10 years is a wonderful young man named David Metcalf. That's Metcalfe, David Metcalf. And, he's been an amazing mover and shaker behind the scenes, particularly within the academic realm, helping various academics ease their way into the world of ufology, UFOs, UAP, strange anomalous phenomena, including, his friendship with the likes of Diana Walsh-Pasulka and Jeffrey Kripal and so many more academics that I can't even begin to name. But he's had a very well-received essay, which unfortunately is not available in its entirety for free. You can see the abstract over at tandfonline.com. That's Taylor and Francis Online. And the title is Evolution, Apocalypse, and Flying Saucers, Seeking the Phenomena Outside Secular and Religious Eschatologies Toward a Cultural Epistemology of UAP in the Age of Information War. Go, David. That's one hell of a title. This was published online in November of last year, 2025. The abstract reads as follows. The reemergence of the UFO UAP question in scientific, governmental, and academic settings has resurrected an older eschatological tension. The intersection of belief revelation, and authority in modern epistemic systems. This paper argues that the UAP phenomenon functions as a cultural attractor for both secular and religious eschatologies, producing an unstable feedback loop between fringe cosmologies and institutional legitimacy, drawing on case studies ranging from the 1947 Pentecostal revival to the viral rediscovery of the CIA's quote-unquote gateway process report. I examine how authority, religious, governmental, informational, amplifies mythic participation in the unknown, framed through Kant's three questions: what can we know? What must we do? What can we hope for? It proposes that UAP serve as a mirror through which contemporary societies negotiate the boundaries between knowledge and mystery. The result is less a revelation of the otherworldly than an evolving reflection of how humans construct meaning in an age of epistemic volatility. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Unfortunately, like I say, I don't think this is available for free. I think it's a bit pricey. Maybe I'll reach out to him and find a copy for myself to read in its entirety. But yep, moving right along very quickly here. Oh, I need to redo this. Let's see if I can get to this clip I wanted to play. Hold steady with me, folks. Here we are. All right. All right. So making the rounds is this, Jesse Michaels, an American Alchemy podcast interview with our good friend Klaus Svahn of AFU, the Archives for the Unexplained, formerly the Archives for UFO Research over there in Sweden, the biggest, best archive in the world for UFOs and all things anomalous related to UFOs. The title is "The Man Sitting on More UFO Evidence Than Anyone Alive." Again, they're focusing on him as opposed to the archive itself. Now, granted, I love Klaus. He's a wonderful man. So glad to have finally met him in person in 2002, 4 years ago at the Rice University conference. And he is the biggest competition for archives like ours and others out there trying to grab up the materials. And yes, it's kind of frustrating that they keep getting all the good stuff, but not all the good stuff. They get a lot of the good stuff. David Marler's got a lot of good stuff. Jeff Kripal's got a lot of good stuff, and we have a lot of good stuff, and others out there do as well. But here is a quick bit from this. Hopefully it'll play properly.
Which UFO case impacted you the most and changed your life the most?
I grew up with the Barney and Betty Hill case, of course, and that was hugely important to me. And when I met Betty many years ago in the middle of the 80s, I got a quite new view on her. So it's important to meet with the witnesses.
What was your new view on her when you met with her?
Yeah, well, I was, most ufologists, and if you read the books, it says that Betty Hill was not interested in UFOs at all before the encounter at the Indian Head.
Yeah.
But she was.
Really?
And not only that, she told me that she was sitting on the porch together with her I think it was sister, whatever. It was a relative. And something came crossing the sky and crashed. And they went out in the field and brought back debris.
What?
From this crashed object.
A few years ago, before this happened, this was in the 50s, I was over here in Maine visiting with the family. And it was a warm night, and we're sitting outdoors on the porch when we saw what we thought at that time was a plane, very slowly.
All right. Anyway, a lot of folks are making hay about, new evidence, new revelations. Well, yes and no. And I will grant that I wasn't really aware of this until I met Klaus, and he told me about that. So again, I've only known about this quote unquote UFO crash case that Betty and her family experienced before her and her husband's abduction, allegedly, and that the evidence is buried in the yard of their house. Now, why? I don't know if Kathleen Marden, the niece of Betty and Barney Hill, who has been such a promoter of their case, supporter of their case, is aware of this or has written about it or has investigated this. I don't know. Excuse me. But this is not that new. Again, back when I met Klaus, he mentioned it to me. And so I put links to it in our own anomalyarchives.org page for the Betty and Barney Hill case. There's a lot of great links on our page. I highly recommend you go check that out. But yeah, sure enough, I did put links to Klaus Vaughn's article where he says, quote, on April the 13th, 1987, I met Betty Hill in her house on 953 State Street in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Together with me was my wife, fellow journalist and photographer, yada, 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 who traveled with me during a vacation in the U.S. What she revealed to us then has been a topic of great interest for many ufologists. Here is the full story. And you can link to it over at UFO Sweden, published for the first time in UFO Sweden's magazine, UFO Occult, number 3 in the year 1990. That's right. This information has been out there on the internet. Well, I don't know when this page was put up, but it was printed in a probably non-English language UFO magazine as far back as 1990. But Klaus gets around, and so this information has obviously been circulating for a long time. And he has a link here to the MP3 file of that. But yeah, this is all available online for folks to listen to. So not some great new revelation. Not trying to, cast shade on Jesse Michaels. It's just, there is so much information out there that people don't know about that is sitting in archives and is available and known through certain old timers. Well, anyway, that's going to be it. I'm going to end this now, but yeah, please, go to our patreon.com/Anomaly Archives coming up this Saturday. That's going to be happening Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. You can sign up over at our Patreon and become a member and gain access to that live and every month's live lecture series, the Anomaly Academy lecture series, as well as the back catalog of the previous year's monthly lectures, which we also then eventually make public for everybody because we're all about public education. But we do need your help. We do need your support. Please go to Anomaly Archives. You can donate through PayPal. You can donate through a check sent to our P.O. box. You can donate through Patreon, or you can reach out for other ways to support us. Go to anomalyarchives.org. You can click the links there. There's a phone number, a P.O. box. There is a email address, contact@anomalyarchives.org. Thank you, and keep watching the skies. Be safe out there. Good night. Good day.